Hello friends, welcome back to the second lesson in this chapter on interest. On simple interest, we are looking at this in the current segment of this chapter, and what we are looking at in simple interest now in this lesson is some standard questions that you get in simple interest, and through those questions we will try to discover a few more thought processes in simple interest. Now, just to recap, we know that if you have invested an amount of 4,000 rupees at 8% per annum, then it means basically simple interest. It means basically that your interest every year will be 320 rupees, and you can form an infinite series based on this, where every year you could be adding 320 to the amount, to the principal, to keep getting the amount after any amount, any number of years or any number of time periods. So that's the basic structure of the situation. And in this structure they could twist and turn the structure in a few ways to ask you the questions about simple interest in any of these contexts. So, for example, if I tell you, give you a question that an amount of 4,000 is invested at 8% per annum, simple interest, and after a certain time period, it becomes 5,920 rupees. 4,000 ends up becoming rupees 5,920. So the question is, what is the time period? How many years did it take? So the thing is very simple in this case, because the simple interest structure is such that every year's interest keeps getting added. In this situation, you can simply think that 4,000 plus interest being 5,920, it means that the interest value that you have earned is 1920, and since you're earning at 320 rupees per annum, the number of years will not be nothing but 320 into n, being 1920. So the value of n coming from this equation will be the answer to the number of years. So in other words, you could simply divide 1920 by the annual interest to get the number of time periods, and this will always work in a simple interest question. So 1920 divided by 320 will give you 6 as the number of years in this question, right? And this maybe you can store in your mind always as a formula, that if you want to calculate the number of time periods, in a simple interest situation, the number of time periods is nothing but the total interest divided by the annual interest. Right? And this formula is much more useful, or this logic is much more useful than the PRT by 100 formula that the maths books teach us. Right? So this is something you should know and you should be able to build. So this is the first thing that I wanted to show you. The next situation that I want to talk to you about is, let's say you are given that let's say, second question, again we are trying to understand standard situations and what should be a thinking process, and each of these situations I would want you to practice a little bit more with the questions in the assignment, as well as as your you can also practice from books, etc. You'll find all these questions and situation structures in my books also. So if I give you a question that a sum of money lent at simple interest, there is a sum of money that is lent out at simple interest, and I'm not giving you the rate, and I'm not even giving you this sum of money, but what I tell you is that the sum of money after 2 years, the sum of money after 2 years is 2394, and after 5 years or after another 3 years is 2835. After 2 years is 2394, and after 3 years it's 2835. So the question is, what is the sum? What is the annual interest? What is the sum? What is the annual interest? And what is the rate of interest? 3 questions. Right? And I would want you to think about this before you watch my solution, and you can pause the video and pause the lesson and first try to do this on your own, and then you can watch the most efficient way to do this. Right, so I hope you've been able to do this question. Let me show you what I want to show you here. So if I think of the visualization in this situation, the logical visualization is this, that there was a principal on which once I added 1 year interest and a second year interest, which will obviously be same because it's a simple interest question. We know that by now. So after 2 years, this value became 2394. And after another 3 years, you added the same interest again, and you added the same interest again, and you added the same interest again. So after 5 years, this amount became 2835. So what is very visible from this part of the thinking is that the interest that you're adding, which is the same in all these 5 ovals that I've drawn, all these 5 circles that I've drawn, what you realize is, since these i's are same, you can simply write this thought in this form. And since you can see that your total interest for 3 years is 2835 minus 2394, which is 441, and that is 3i. That means your annual interest must be 441 divided by 3, which is 147, and that means after 2 increments of 147 each, you have been able to get to 2394, which means that the total interest you have earned for the first 2 years is 294, and which means that the principal must be 2100, because the principal plus the total interest earned for 2 years should be equal to 2394. So this was how you interpreted this situation, where you're given the value at one point after a few years and the value at another point. This is a standard question, simple interest, that you'll see in a lot of situations, right? So your principal is 2100, your annual interest is 147, your rate of interest is 147 upon 2100 into 100, which is nothing but 7. So you have a 7% per annum rate of interest, a principal of 2100, and a annual interest of 147 in this case. So if I give you another question like this, a sum of money amounts to 1240 after 4 years and amounts to 1600 after 10 years, and the money is invested in simple interest at a certain percentage. The money is invested as in a simple interest scheme at a certain percentage per annum, certain rate of interest. So what is the amount? What is the annual interest? What is the rate of interest? So again, the visualization is that the sum of money after 4 years to the sum of money after 10 years, the difference between these two values would essentially be 6 times your annual interest. So you can easily find your annual interest. In this case, the difference between 1240 and 1600 is 360. So you can easily find your annual interest as 60. And from the principal, getting to the amount in the 4th year will require you to add the interest 4 times, which means you're adding 4 into 60 to the principal to make it 1240, which obviously means the principal is 1000, the annual interest is 60, and the rate of interest with 60 rupees being given as interest on a principal of 1000, the rate of interest here is 6%. So this is the second kind of standard question that you have in interest. So we'll come back with more in the next lesson, and I'll show you a couple of more question types on interest, on simple interest, before we move our attention to compound interest. Right? Bye for now.